Hello. Did you know that music is sick as hell? It can get you hyped out of your freaking gourd, like this. Or it can make you really sad, but like in a good way, like this. And hey, that's pretty neat, isn't it? Look, I've wanted to talk about music for a long time. It's mind-blowing to me how powerful it is, and how much it can change the entire tone or vibe for like literally anything. And I'm not talking about just in movies and games and stuff. Like music can make something like running on a treadmill or being at work go from feeling like this to this. So I went on a little mini road trip with my best friend recently. And that little road trip was neat because I got to show him new music and we got to enjoy music that we both like together. And I realized maybe I want to share that feeling with you out there. Yeah, you right there. And also take an opportunity to show you some bands that are still around today making neat sounding stuff. Now, what sucks about this is that I'm in here and you're out there. And I can't go on a road trip with all of you guys. I mean, there's like a good amount of you and I don't want to do that much driving. And also, we can't get high together and start working our way through my record collection, dude. So what I thought I'd do is I'd take you on a little journey, like through the different music that I've grown to appreciate over the years. Now, what really blows about this is that YouTube is absolutely going to bust my nuts if I straight up play cool music for you, but we will bear the weight of adversity with the heavy footfalls of ingenuity. So what you're gonna get today instead are really weird covers of Alice in Chains songs using the Super Mario 64 sound font. As well as slow/reverbed covers a la anime beats to study and relax to. These covers, if you can call them that, are, you know, funny, and XD tacos so random, Raw means I love you, and Dinosaur in their own right. However, they don't do a lot of the songs I'm going to be talking about today justice. So you should definitely go check out some of the tunes that I'm going to be mentioning today in your free time, if you wanna. You should. It's the whole point of the video. You should, please. And lastly, just as a whatever, music is just sounds, and sounds are just air that moves like. And to me, music I like is air that moves the way that I like it. But to someone else, the air moving the way that I like it could be air that sounds like a piano getting dropped on a 2004 Nissan Altima. And look, I get that. But I'm here to talk about music that I like. If you want to make a video about music that you like, fucking do it, bro. Okay, so with all that being said, I think the best way to set this all up and just kind of lay out some structure right here at the top is to talk about the phases of my life that almost seemed like marked by the music and bands that I was listening to at the time. Now, if you'll indulge my lily white ass, I would love to show you how my music taste went from something cringe and unbased like this, I'm not a perfect to music that I listen to now at 31 years of age that is more elegant and refined like this. Fun fact, did you know that I was born more than 3 years ago? When I was young, my only real exposure to music was through the radio, actually. One of the first songs I can remember ever hearing was Waterfalls by TLC, which my goofy little ass thought was a song about a guy named Jason Waterfalls, you know? Because they say, here, I'll just play this. They say, don't go chasing. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Listen, I am dumb. Other hits I remember from this period of time include the dulcet tones of the Macarena. And another DJ's delight, I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett, which is that's just good old classic rock, baby. Now, due to a blood pact that my mom made with Ryan Seacrest of all people, most of the music I would hear in the car to and from school was brought to you in part by 102.7 Kiss FM. This radio station would become a part of my morning routine against my will for many years. My relationship with music was just this loose jumble of pop music from the radio for a long time. You know, party anthem stuff like Hey Ya by Outkast, which is... I mean, that song's just a banger. The only other thing I knew about music was that it was in movies sometimes. A real quick shout out one time to Phil Collins, who fucking killed it on the Tarzan soundtrack. It wasn't until a time I distinctly remember my aunt, who is actually very close to me in age compared to how most aunts are, showing me the band Cake.
Reluctantly crouched at the starting line.
And seeing how into them she was, for some reason, kind of sparked something for me. I felt this need to base my identity around some music, too. And boy, howdy, did I shape my personality and entire shit around some bands. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for how hard the fucking Christian rock / Christian alt rock / Christian fucking metal would hit me as a little adolescent bastard child. I went to Sunday school as a little kid when I was young, but as I started getting older, Sunday school gave way to youth ministry. And anyone who's ever been to something called youth ministry already knows where I'm going with this. So during the mid-2000s, the people at the tippy top of the born-again Christian scene had a vice-like grip on kids with this whole making Christianity cool movement. This was a whole trend that at first I thought was a more like localized event until recently when I watched a King of the Hill episode, actually, where it featured a youth pastor with tattoos doing Bible study at a skate park, which was totally the how do you do fellow kids vibe that my church was going for. Here, check this out. So I was in deep with this, right? I had a Bible that it looked like a skate magazine. It was called Refuel. It had like actual Bible verses, not even verses. It had like entire books of the book of Matthew, the book of Jimothy or whatever the fuck. It was straight up just the New Testament, but it was in this style that had like other shit like on like the margins and like the sides of the page. You know, like this right here. Look at it. How to attract godly girls. And there's this other one, extras, girls cash and cars, girls spill it all. This is a Bible. Like, what do you mean? This isn't a beach. This is a bathtub. Anyway, moving on. This whole phase only lasted like 2 years tops. And I started outgrowing these bands. Like, I was outgrowing fucking clothes at this point. A good amount of the Christian rock I was listening to was fine for what it was. But to be honest, I feel like there's only so many ways you can say you love God and Jesus before it all just adopts the same overall tone, at least lyrically. But this isn't like a Christian rock like breakdown video. It was such a palpable tangent of my life, I couldn't help but include it. So like many of you, I was not immune to middle school. Those years of my life is where a lot started to just go like completely backwards from what I thought was going to be normality. Girls were considerably taller than boys for like a year.
Let's go to work.
I cared so much about not only how nice, but how like clean my shoes were for no reason at all. And I inexplicably learned HTML encoding so I could make my MySpace profile look cool. Most of all though, I was craving literally any form of new music that wasn't stuff by Relient K. Most of my memories from around this time kind of form into this dense chemical fog of Axe body spray and perfumes from Hollister. But what's this? What's this? A vision cutting through my dark haze of memories like the beam of a lighthouse on a stormy night. Why, it's my only true middle school pal, Joe, in a System of a Down t-shirt of all things. I remember seeing him in that shirt and had no idea who System of a Down was at the time. But once I started checking them out, I was hooked just as hard as I was to the fucking worship music we just got done talking about. So much so that my first ever CD I ended up buying was ironically named Steal This Album. So named because at the time, pirating music on Napster and LimeWire had begun running rampant. Initially, I showed up for their wacky-ass tracks like Chicken Stew, which is a song about pizza with some pretty solid toppings on it,
Pepperoni and green peppers, mushrooms, olive thyme.
and also a gripping commentary on the adverse effects of modern-day marketing on the human mind.
Therapy, advertising causes need.
But I stuck around for their emotionally moving tracks like Genocidal Humanoids, which actually came out recently, and other tracks like Holy Mountains, both of which are tracks that deal with subjects very personal and important to the band. Back in the good old days of the early to mid 2000s, we had these things called AMVs, or anime music videos. Like many other things around this time, I was not immune to watching and eventually making some of my own. One of the few that I made was an AMV that was set to footage from the film Kung Fu Hustle, which is actually a really good movie if you haven't seen it. It's fun. It's ridiculous, but it's fun. And it was footage that was set to Chop Suey by System of a Down, which I will attempt to recreate for you now. Man, you know, I put that video together for a bit, but actually I'm kind of proud of it. It's good. It fucks. I still wish I had the original full AMV. I unfortunately didn't upload it to YouTube back when I made it. I lost it in the great MySpace purge of 2016, unfortunately. All right, last thing on System of a Down real quick. I've had like 3 different people send me this video, and it's fucking comedy gold. Shout out to this guy on YouTube. His name is Mac Glocky. You should watch him because he has a lot of really good mashups, and he does one of the B-52's song Rock Lobster if System of a Down wrote it. I'll just put in a small clip here and then we'll move on.
But it wasn't a rock. It was a rock lobster.
Similarly to middle school, high school came careening into my life at a frankly dangerous speed, and with it, the introduction of many different things. People I knew in real life that I had gone to middle school with had started kissing each other on the butt or whatever, but not me. I was way too painfully unaware of social cues to get my butt kissed or to kiss someone else's butt. So instead, I spent my time playing Halo 3 and, you know, smoking a little marijuana. Around my junior year, my brother was my ride to and from school. He had a 0-period class, but I actually didn't. So I would spend the first hour of most mornings in the senior parking lot and listening to tunes on my fucking Zune, dude. Now, I'm not condoning drug use at all. Go to Milk and drink your school. But let me stop the fucking roller coaster for a second and hit you with this. Music hits a little bit different when you're stony baloney, my friend. You know, I once heard ska music described as the music that plays when a child finds out that they can have extra mozzarella sticks. And I think that Superman by Goldfinger is the perfect example of such a phenomenon. Just out of curiosity, I looked it up. Goldfinger is still together as a band. And not only that, but during the quarantine, a time where we all probably needed it the most, almost 25 years after the song that I just played for you released, they all got together and each independently filmed a part of a music video in each of their respective home studios and put it out in April of 2020, which is just... It's just great because, like, there's this part where the bass player's, like, just going ham and his dog walks up to him, like, hey, dude, what are you doing right now? What's going on? Anyway, I just thought that was neat. Much like my taste in literally anything, music I enjoy is inherently tied to video games. I would very much like to give a quick shout out and a dank thank to whoever put the soundtracks together for the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games. A good amount of the music from the Tony Hawk games would actually go on to inform a lot of my music taste later in life. I actually didn't realize how many of the songs were in the soundtracks that I ended up liking until years later when I would listen to them on my own and be like, hey, wait a minute, is this on Tony? Was this in Tony Hawk 2? Young man, were you in Tony Hawk's Underground? No, it wasn't me, Mom. I swear, dude. Primus, go to your room. I fucking hate it here. Songs I would end up double dipping on later in life were tracks like Jerry Was a Race Car Driver by Primus. A Day at the Races by Jurassic 5.
Music power.
And Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine. Keep in mind that these are all specifically licensed songs and games that I'm talking about today. Music made specifically for video games? That is an entirely separate video, my friend. Pilotwings 64 OST, I'm looking at you, bitch! And you look great. Is that a new dress? Did you get a haircut? You look great. Whatever it is, you look great. Around the time I started going to high school, the Guitar Hero and Rock Band sweep started gripping gamers all around the nation. And let me tell you something, that sweep swept me right under the dang rug because I played the plastic instruments like no other mother. Yeah! I was playing so much Guitar Hero and Rock Band that I actually got my family in on the mix too. There's definitely some photos in a scrapbook that my mom has somewhere of all of my aunts and my one uncle all fucking up some Rock Band in the living room, baby. I actually paired up with a few other people over Xbox Live and played a few songs with them on Expert. Now, back in my day, when you started a voice chat with other people, it was called a party. And eventually, me and these random people hopped into one of these parties. And someone suggested giving the Impossible setlist a try. Now, we didn't manage to get the Bladder of Steel achievement because somebody had to keep trying to take lead guitar on Expert, knowing fully well that they couldn't handle it, so we would fail and then have to restart every so often. As a direct result of playing the game so much, I'll be the first to admit that my entire music taste was the setlist from Guitar Hero 3 and Rock Band 1 and 2 for a short duration. Or, until now, depending on who you ask. Shout out one time to Coheed and Cambria. Guitar Hero 3 specifically got me into Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine, Audioslave, and eventually more of Chris Cornell's music as a part of Soundgarden and also Nine Inch Nails. I didn't even know who Tom Morello was before the fucking Tom Morello boss battle that everyone likes to meme on now. Listen, that song that's fun. Tom Morello did weird stuff with the guitar that was just it was just fun. It just sounded like fun. There's an interesting phenomenon in music that is always fascinating to me, and I think the best example of this is found with Rage Against the Machine. So Rage is a band obviously with a killer fucking sound. Of course, this goes without saying, as their most popular track, Killing in the Name, has nearly 800 million plays on Spotify alone at the time of recording this video. But what's interesting about this band specifically is that I've heard all manner of people listening and even singing along to it. People who don't even realize that the lyrics and the message to the song, to all of Rage's music actually, so fiercely does not align with their personal politics. I mean, literally the next track on the album after Killing in the Name is a song called Take the Power Back. But I don't know, I guess it just speaks to how something sounding and being so cool can allow it to transcend barriers, no matter how shitty those barriers may be. All of the Guitar Hero and Rock Band led me to listening to a lot of the great classic rock artists from back in the day. Artists like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, The Who, The Beatles, The Stones, Black Sabbath, David Bowie. I could go on all day. Although I wasn't sucking wind around the time these bands were actually around, listening to their albums and reading about all their stories was really awesome to experience for the first time. And I really learned a lot about the different little connections between the bandmates themselves and with other bands. It was so cool to see this entire little ecosystem of musicians over the course of music history, either making great friends with one another, like in the case of Iggy Pop and David Bowie, or pissing each other off, like with Frank Zappa and Lou Reed. The one through point with most of these musicians, though, was they were almost always subjecting themselves to a very extreme part of the human experience for the sake of art and, if we're being honest, for the sake of attention, too. The funny and kind of weird thing is that I got very music snobby about classic rock around this time. There's no real dancing around it. During my senior year, I was a hipster, and there was no disguising it. One of the things I kind of own, though, and hold on to from this time is the whole idea of subjecting myself to new stuff, even if I might not necessarily like it. I started adopting the philosophy of not being able to live off of ice cream. No one enjoys eating oatmeal or broccoli, just like no one enjoys listening to Why by Yoko Ono. But look, sometimes you do it, because in a weird way, it helps you experience something new. And as a result from it, you grow. Or you at least learn what you don't like. A lot of the bands I started getting into in my late high school to early college years were actually thanks to my older brother. He started getting into a band called Queens of the Stone Age.
Thank you, Spider-Man. Bring Spider-Man to me.
which ended up becoming my next hyperfixation band after all my middle school era stuff started to get a little too repetitive. Not all their albums I can listen to wall to wall, but there is almost always a handful of tracks from each album that completely steal the show. What was really cool was seeing how many offshoot bands formed as a result of the frontman Josh's connections in the music industry. One such band being the Eagles of Death Metal, which comprises of just 2 members, which is Josh, the frontman of Queens of the Stone Age, and his friend Jesse Hughes. The 2 of them seem like they have a lot of fun recording. In between tracks, you can hear them joking with one another or calling each other weird little nicknames or pseudo-names for one another. They also did this really goofy cover of Blinded by the Light, where the lead singer ends the song like this.
Through the night.
Another group that Josh put together was comprised of John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin on the bass and keyboards, and then there was Dave Grohl on the drums. And of course, the frontman for Queens, Josh, was on the lead guitar and vocals. Even though they only put out 1 studio album, it's one that's most definitely worth a listen, for sure. There was another band that my brother showed me called Man Man, which is, it's just the word man twice. That's the name of the band. Their stuff gets so fucking weird that the only genre that Wikipedia lists them as is experimental rock. And that's it. Here's actually a rare example where I can play a full song off an album for you. Ready? Let's cut to a clip. Thank you very much. That was the track Fish Stick Gumbo is the name of the song, and you just heard the whole thing in its entirety. In all seriousness, this band's music is very fun and bouncy. It feels like if Danny Elfman somehow impossibly became even more fucking chaotic. I remember showing the song called The Ballad of Butterbeans to some pals of mine who were wrestlers back in high school. And I remember the both of them collectively went from, what the fuck is this, to, yo, put the fucking Butterbeans song on, within a couple mornings of riding to school together. Just like with high school, my brother was my ride to and from college, since we both went to the same campus. We would check out bands that just got, like, more obscure the further down the rabbit hole we would go together. Whether it was checking out an old band's entire album lineup, like with the Pixies after hearing them, or drinking up every last detail about artists that were up and coming around the late 2000s, like Ty Segall. Ty Segall is a really great artist, both as a solo project and as a part of the many different bands that he started. He actually went to Laguna Beach High School and quickly became a force to be reckoned with in the indie rock scene here in California. His first self-titled album was one that I had on repeat around the time I graduated high school. It's recorded almost purposefully shitty, and it straight up sounds like someone duct taped a tambourine to the bass drum for every track on the album, so non-tambourine fans do not interact. As a solo project, Ty has released 14 studio albums, barely missing the 1 a year mark since 2008. He's definitely someone you should give a listen to if you like indie or garage rock, for sure. Something I didn't realize until recently, Ty is also pals with the OC's frontman, John Dwyer. I didn't know at the time that they were friends, but in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense. The OCs originally started out as a band called Coach Whips. They're also great, but they're definitely like noise rock in the sense that I have no fucking idea what they're ever singing or saying in any of their songs. But their sound is awesome. The OCs have an album named after a carrion crawler, which is a creature from Dungeons & Dragons, and another album that's just simply called Orc, which is, I mean, that's just fun, dude. I mean, look at their album art. It's amazing, and it has so much personality. Except for the one with the old fucking telephone toy on it, which kind of has a different context now that I've seen Skinamarink. Anyway, the OCs are another really fun band that you should check out. Of course, again, assuming that you like rock and things that are loud in general. But of course, it's not just rock that I like. I do enjoy pop music, but the only true pop music I enjoy really is actually 80s pop. Some of the biggest hits on the radio from back then are things I put on and unironically enjoy now. For example, every time I get fucking rickrolled, I'm like,
You know the rules, and so do I.
oh, nice. Okay, time for some Rick Astley. Let's go. I really started getting into Oingo Boingo a few years ago. You know, the guys that made this song. And their frontman, I actually mentioned earlier, Danny Elfman, has made plenty of music for at least one of your favorite movies. He's also still out there doing his thing at 70 years old. And he's also kind of ripped. He's kind of like in really good shape for being 70. Anyway, I can totally put on an 80s best of playlist and just groove to that shit. Probably due to the nostalgic factor of remembering my mom listening to tracks like Sweet Dreams I'm Made of These. Honorable mentions, of course, go to bands like The Cure, Billy Idol, Depreshed Mode, and Queen. And look, I know Queen released most of their stuff in the 70s, but I'll be goddamned if I'm not gonna get the Flash Gordon soundtrack in here, okay? There's a lot more music that got me from college age to now. But to be honest with you guys, it would be an insanely long video if I talked about them all. I will say that a band that from recently that I've been getting into is a group called Viagra Boys.
I try to warn you, I'm loose.
They very much have the same energy as a lot of the early stuff from Iggy Pop when he was with the Stooges.
Is everybody ready? Well, all right.
Their lead singer, Sebastian, even pops his shirt off every time he walks on stage. Although he just looks more like your uncle at a pool party than a beef jerky man who has the Pharaoh's curse. Viagra Boys are amazing. I've gotten the chance to see them twice just in the last year, and both times they blew me away. At the first show that I went to, they literally blew me away in my eardrum. Real bad. Their saxophone player was like right by my left ear the whole night of the show. Hey, PSA, huh? Wear ear protection at shows when you know the venue's like gonna be really small. Protect your hearing. It's important. Gosh gave you 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, but only 1 smile. I have other videos that I would want to do as kind of like deep dives on specific bands and their whole album lineup. The easiest one that jumps to mind is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who I actually managed to go this entire video without even mentioning once. I started getting really into them right before the pandemic happened. I was doing a lot of growing and reflecting. Now, some people dealt with a lot of feelings during the quarantine by starting a new hobby, like learning how to make sourdough bread. Me? I listened to the entire Infest the Rat's Nest album by King Giz all the way through, like 9 times a day. And people cope differently, okay? And in case you've ever heard a King Giz song and didn't like it, let me tell you something. There are plenty of genres that they cover. In fact, here, look at these 2 songs from the same album.
She flies a handbag, freak flag, dragon snail, knapsack. I am Gaia.
There were plenty of other shows I got to see before and after all that, though. My very first concert was actually one of those alt-Christian rock bands I mentioned a little while ago. And actually, me and my best pal just went to a Wolfmother show in September for my birthday. I like going to shows and like making little pals and connecting with people while you're there who probably would have had nothing to do with your entire life if you stayed on the trajectory you were headed towards before going to the show. I think the big picture here is that going to shows inherently gets you out of the house and in very close proximity to new people, ones you may not have held the conversation with or seen normally. And as a direct result of it, your mindset, your sphere of influence, and your life experience in general all get bigger and at the very least more interesting. Music is just a beautiful thing, man. It's wild that all it takes to get your blood pumping from resting heart rate to in the zone is just some noises happening at you in a certain order. It's one of the ultimate forms of expression. And like anything creative, music can be a spectacle to behold if it's in the right hands. When you look past the surface level and start to understand just how much work goes into it all, you realize that there's a science that goes into it. I think the beauty of it is found in an artist's hands when they put together other talented individuals to make a unique, cool sound as a collaborative effort. Musicians practice their hands to the bone, and those that work hard or just bring such raw natural talent see the fruits of their labor in the form of something that really takes on a life of its own once enough people hear it and rally behind it. As a final kind of bookend and to put a little bow on all this, there's a song called Free Your Mind and Your Ass Will Follow by Funkadelic. And I couldn't think of a better way to consolidate my feelings towards music and trying new things in general to the title of just one song. Obviously, a lot more than just music influenced who I am as a person. There are a lot of things at play beyond listening to people make noises. But listen, cool music brought a lot of things to me that are now fundamental parts of my life. I personally believe if you give some new music a try, it may bring new experiences or new people along with it. And hey, it just might change your life too. Thanks for watching, everyone. My name's Mike. This is an idea I have for a video, and let me tell you something. It took me 3 more months longer than I thought it would. If you made it this far in the video, you don't gotta like or comment or subscribe or click the bell. Just like, if you know somebody who likes music or likes animation or both or whatever, just tell them about this video. Maybe send it to them and be like, hey, this guy might be funny. I don't know. Check him out.